I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. Today we're going to paint this jar with a tint in it and it says collect moments. So let's go ahead and start by grabbing like a huge brush and dry it off. So like the biggest brush you have, so probably like an inch or so, and dry it off. And I'm gonna start by grabbing some dark navy because that's gonna be like my background color. And I'm just gonna kind of grab it and go for it any which way because I'm probably gonna throw like a couple layers of this on there. So just kind of grab it and go for it, don't be scared. And don't worry that it's streaky because we're getting ready to come back and add a second layer. Unless your navy's a lot thicker than mine, then you probably won't have to. Oh man, I got some other blue too. My brush, it won't matter once we put on that second layer. All right, so we got one little layer on our background. Let's go ahead and let that dry for a second and then we'll just put like a second layer of navy just to kind of thicken it up. All right, so we have one layer on our background. Now let's go ahead and do a second layer and then we'll dry it again just to get our night sky good and thick. But you can see how the second layer like thickens it up. But like I said, if you had like a thicker navy to begin with, you might not would have had to do the second layer. And I don't mind that it's still like a little streaky because I think that looks better and it won't look quite as flat. So, you know, if yours just still has like a little bit of streak to it, even with a second layer, I think that's fine. All right, so now we have a second layer on there. So let's just wipe that big brush off and toss it in the water and let that dry for just a second. All right, now let's do like the start of our jar because my background's like almost dry. So let's you could use like a number 1. I'm using like a number 4. So whatever is a good drawing brush for you. So I'm using a number 4, but you could use a 1. And I'm gonna grab some really light blues, some baby blue kind of. And I'm just gonna skip up a smidge from the bottom of the canvas. So just like 1.5 inches or so. And I'm gonna do like a droopy line. And then I might even throw just like a few little hints of blue right above it. I might come back and blend that a little bit better. And then once I have the droopy line for the bottom of the jar, then I'm gonna throw a line going straight up on both sides for at least like 6 inches or so. Well, probably more, but I'm just gonna start out by throwing a line going up. Which when I do lines, I just kind of go for it because then I can always come back and slim it down with paint. But I know some people like to like hold something straight against it. So you could do that if you wanted to. And then once you have both of those lines, then off the top, we're just gonna curve it in just a little bit. which it doesn't matter if your jar is like taller than mine or shorter, but I would make it take up like quite a bit of the canvas since that's like, you know, our focus is this jar. And then we're gonna do just a bumpy line. So kind of give the impression of the threads. So just kind of bump it out. And we're gonna do that on both sides. And then I'm just gonna do a little line that droops just a little. Which I know I'm getting kind of thick with this, but we can come back and throw some dark in there. And then I'm gonna do another droopy line that just kind of parallels, that kind of mirrors that first line, just right there, like from the bottom of the threads. And then we'll just throw like a few more little slivers in here because we're getting ready to come back with some other colors in there too. So it's like they still have that same droop, but they don't have to go all the way across. And then I'm just gonna throw like a little line that leans up right there at the top. All right, so once I got the start of that, then let's grab just a little bit of like the navy and like a blue, light blue together. And let's just kind of throw a little bit of that in a few places where that outside line touches the background, just so it won't be quite as stark. It'll help like look a little bit more like glass. And then I'm gonna do the same thing down here at the bottom. I'm gonna kind of blend it a little bit better. So I'm just gonna do a few little streaks. All right, and then now through the very top, I'm gonna grab even more navy and I'm gonna throw some streaks through there. And this is where like my line up here got a little thick. I'll thin it down a smidge. And you can always like come back later and thin it down a little more too. And I'm just gonna throw a few more little pieces of navy in there just to get it more painterly, less perfect. All right, so we have like the start of our jar kinda. Now let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And I would probably grab like another, I'm gonna use a number 4 again for this next part. So clean number 4 brush and dry it off. And I'm gonna grab some off-white. And you could do whatever kind of moon, but I'm probably gonna do a full moon just because it lights up the sky. And we'll have to hit it again. Like it's okay that it's kind of streaky. And then whenever you're doing something like this, to get a good smooth line, the trick is to have a lot of paint on your brush and just be really light with it. So have a bunch of paint and then just be really light. All right, so we have the start of our moon. Then let's go ahead and just kind of wipe that one off a smidge, or you could still keep a little bit of it. And you can do your tint any color. I'm just gonna do mine red because I thought that looked good with the green trees. But let's skip down here to the bottom, and I'm just gonna start with like a droopy line. It can kind of lean down. And then I'm gonna throw a little diagonal off the right hand side and kind of thicken it up just a little bit at the bottom. Let it flare out like the tie down. And then I'm going to throw another diagonal just to give like the little opening of the tent. And then I'm going to do the bottom. So I'm going to kind of let it lean up just a little. And then I'm going to do another little diagonal. And then once you get that on there, then just kind of fill it in with a layer. We can come back and add some lights and darks to it here in a minute. But that's a good start to our little tent. All right, then let's go ahead and wipe that brush off. And let's grab some dark green. So grab some dark green with even a little bit of black with that same size brush. You don't have to wipe it off or anything. And now we're gonna do some trees. And so whenever you do these, if you want to, you can kind of start with a line going straight up. And then just grab a bunch of paint and be really light. And you want to kind of come down with your stroke. And then like your strokes can get a little bit bigger. I'm gonna have this one kind of overlap the moon. It'll be a little bit different than the one I'm painting from. And then I'm just gonna keep doing that. Those little strokes going down. And this tree's gonna go a little bit behind our tent. So you can go ahead and kind of take it all the way to your tent, because we'll add more branches like of different colors here in a sec to kind of make it pop out more. But that'll just be like a good start to our tree. Okay, so there's one tree. And I'm gonna throw quite a few. So let's throw, and I would make them different heights just because I think it looks better to have kind of like varying heights. So let's throw like a little bit shorter one over here. So still the same kind of thing, like have a bunch of paint and come down with your stroke. I'm gonna take it like all the way down to the bottom of the tent. I even kind of ate away at the edge of the tent where it looked a little thick. Right next to it, I might go like a tad bit taller. Throw one right here. My moon's probably still a little wet. That's okay, because we'll come back to it. We're just kind of getting the basics on here. All right, so we've got the start of all of our little trees. So now let's go ahead, and while we have the green on there, just grab some lighter greens with that same brush. You don't have to wipe it off or anything. And underneath here, let's just do some streaks. Kind of going side to side, being really light with your brush. Because you don't have to get it like filled in solid. We're just kind of giving the impression that it's some grass or moss. Maybe a little bit more slimy limey green, and throw a few more streaks in there. All right, so you have a few streaks down there. And then while you still have the light greens, maybe go ahead and go back to your trees and add just a few little strokes going down. Kind of hop around just so they won't be all in a perfect row. Kind of skip around. And don't worry if they're going on like really light, because they're gonna dry a little bit darker than they go on. Let's skip to another one that's more dry since our moon is so wet. All right, so we have the start of our trees. Let's go ahead and wipe that one off. And now let's add our little tag. So I'm gonna grab some more navy. And even though our paint's still a little wet, that's okay because we can hit this a couple times, but grab a little navy. And I'm just gonna start like right up here at the top. And you can do any kind of tag. I'm just making mine kind of like one of those long tags. So I'm gonna start with like a flat top to it. Throw some diagonals off of it. Then I'm just gonna have like, but yours can be shorter, longer, and you don't have to write collect moments. You could put memories or any kind of. So I'm just gonna get that on there. I'm gonna grab a little bit of black with the navy just to kind of help it cover a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and fill that all in with a layer just so it can be drying. All right, cool. So it's a little streaky, but we'll come back in just a second and add more to it. All right, so we have the start of our tag. Let's go ahead and wipe off our extra paint and chunk that one in the water. And while we're waiting for a few things to dry, let's use a teeny tiny brush, so like a number 1. So the smallest one you have, and dry it off and grab some bright white. And now we're gonna add our little stars. And whenever you're doing this, I think it looks good to have some in your jar and then have some like kind of coming out of your jar. You're kind of in the moment, collecting the moments. And whenever you do the stars, it looks better to kind of do 2 or 3, then skip somewhere else and do 2 or 3. That way they're not all like polka dots. You want it to kind of look more natural. And in the night sky, usually there's a few closer together. So instead of just hopping around doing like one at a time, do a few like little patches of a couple together and then skip somewhere else and do a few of a couple together. That's probably like a good start. Now let's throw even a few like right here in this top part of the lid, like top part of the jar right there. And then we'll have some that kind of come out and go all the way to the tip top. So definitely skip around when you're doing these. And you want some on the very top edge. That way it doesn't look like they just stopped right there. It's kind of like they keep going. So make sure you have a few that are like right there near the very top. But I'm just gonna skip around and do like a few together first. And then you can throw some like that are kind of all by their lonesome. Hopefully that doesn't look too planned out. I'll go through and add a couple singles that looks a little wild. But just have it so they kind of burst out from your jar. And then I would even though this is still a little wet, I'm gonna throw just a few little stars. And then I'm gonna even grab some white and light blue, and I'm gonna go back and add a few lighter streaks through the threads, just a couple. Not going too cray-cray. And then I'm going to add just a few light streaks to the sides too. Now, I think I can probably go ahead and throw on like the start of like the little part that holds the tag on, because we'll come back and hit it again too. But just grab some like really light blue. And you want it to look like it goes around the jar, so make sure it kind of hangs out over the edge. And then I'm going to take it all the way over here. So I'm just going to let it droop just a little. And it doesn't matter if it hits a tree, the moon, you know, whatever. Just as long as it's kind of connecting your tag. And then I'm going to make sure it's, you know, connected over here too. So it's going to kind of hang off and go behind there. All right, so there's the start of that. Then I would grab just like a little bit more of that white and light blue, and I'm just going to do some like tiny little diagonals. Just to kind of make it look bumpy, like it's, which I'll probably go back and hit that again. And then let's go ahead and grab like still a light blue, but like a pool blue kind of. And I'm gonna add my little rivet. Which that might have got a little big, but, and then still with a lighter color, we're just gonna kind of outline it. All right, so we have the start of that. Let's just let it dry for just a second, and that way we can go back and hit our tag again and our little moon. So let's just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water and give it just a second to dry. All right, let's go ahead now and grab like probably a number 4 again and dry it off. And let's grab a little bit of off-white, maybe even a tiny bit of pale yellow. And let's just add a second layer to our little moon. And like, just like the background, it's okay if it's still a little streaky, but I'm gonna get like a layer of paint on here. And then I'm actually gonna take like maybe even a little bit of white with the off-white. And I'm gonna add some little bumps, because you know how the moon kind of looks like cheese. I'm gonna add some little bumps in a few places to kind of have that texture kind of look. Kind of in little patches. But when you're doing this, make sure you don't just like bump it through the middle. Like have some patches near the edges just to kind of make it look more natural. So we got another layer on there. Now let's add another layer to our tint. And we're just gonna kind of do another thin layer, because it's all right if it's still a little streaky. So we have the start of that. Then let's go and wipe that one off. And let's grab a little bit more of the light greens and dark greens together. And now let's add a few more branches to our trees. Actually, that might have got too bright. I'm gonna grab a little bit more dark with it. And kind of skip around. So just like we did before, make sure you kind of skip around. That way they won't be like a straight line down one side or just in the middle. Kind of hop around when you're throwing your branches. But it looks good to have like all different color greens going on. And I'm probably gonna do like all the other trees before I get that one that's really hitting the moon, just because that moon is so wet. Just kind of hop all around. And they're gonna dry a little bit darker than it goes on. So I think like the fact that they're kind of, you know, showing up quite a bit right now is okay, because they'll dry a little bit darker. Ooh, got a little too much black. I was trying to get a little darker through the top, but I grabbed a little too much black there. So I'll just grab a little bit more green and throw some over it. All right, we got our trees looking a little better. Now let's wipe that one off and let's grab some more navy and let's throw another layer in through our little tag just to get it kind of covered where the jar was. All right, let's see, that's a pretty good start to the tag. Now let's just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water, and let's grab a teeny tiny brush again, so like a number 1, and dry it off. And I'm gonna grab a little bit of white with some red, just to kind of give me like a faded red. And now I'm gonna add like my tie downs and some like hints of a lighter color to my tint. So I'm gonna add a tiny bit of that through the top of it. Then I can like skip. Let's start over here and add like that little, we'll have a little flap right here that ties us down. And then we'll have a little tie down back here at the back. And then we'll just kind of connect this. We'll add just a teeny tiny little dot for a stake. And then add a little bit of light. All right, I think we got enough. I don't want to make it too perfect. So if you do, you can just come back and like trim that up a little bit if you got too perfect with it. All right, then let's just wipe that one off and rinse it out. And if anything, I would probably add a little bit of white maybe to like the bottom of the jar. Like a few little highlights to your jar. Like just kind of barely touching. All right, and then let's wait and hit that tag again in that one once that dries a little. So let's wipe that one off and chunk it in the water and give that just a second to dry. So now that it's a little bit more dry, let's go ahead and like kind of tweak our tag a little bit. So I'm just gonna go back and add a few more tiny little diagonals to this little, to kind of give it like a little twine look, just a little bumpy. Then I'm gonna grab a little bit more blue because that got a little washed out, just to fix it. And I might even hit the edges of this again too. All right. Now, I'm just gonna, you could write whatever, but I'm gonna do like collect moments. So to do that, I'm gonna start out. The trick when you're doing like cursive lettering is every part of the letter that goes down, you get thicker with it. So I'm gonna come back and add that. Probably should like write it on here first, but so when you go up, you keep it thin. When you come down, you thicken it up. I'm gonna start this one a little further over just so I don't like run out of room. All right, so we have that on there. That looks pretty good, but you could always tweak it. So I'm gonna go ahead now and probably just sign it because I think it looks pretty good. So now we have collect moments.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.